Greetings, BArcadians, and welcome to the BA Gaming News Show every Friday at 5 PM with your hosts, me, Tabz, and, well, not with another host today. You'll see Rich's cartoony graphic, but we have him piped in over the telephony. Rich, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us why we're doing it this way this week?
Hello, BArcadians. So I'm actually on holiday this week, which is a nice breakaway. Unfortunately, I'm in an area where there is very limited both phone signal and internet. The place we're staying doesn't have Wi-Fi. So the best I could do, guys and girls, is to just join in with audio. So hopefully you can put up with that this week.
Yeah, definitely, Rich. Good to have you than not to have you at all. It would have been a disaster of me running entirely solo. But yeah, I'm in the control room today, so apologies, BArcadians. It's not something I do regularly. Rich usually carries us on that front, so yes, bear with us. But Rich, should we start off? We've got a pretty packed show today, especially on the on the heels of the Xbox showcase, which we've both just managed to watch prior to this. But do you want to tell us what you've been playing mostly this week, my friend?
Well, I'm sure it will come as no surprise to anyone who's watched our recent unboxing video, which dropped a few days ago, that all I have solely been playing this week is a Ghost of Tsushima, and I am absolutely loving it. It has its faults, don't get me wrong, but I just absolutely love the world. I'm absolutely immersed in it. It's a special world, and I'm really, really enjoying it. It has nods to lots of other games, Breath of the Wild, bit of God of War, I would say. So yeah, really loving it. What about you, Tabz? I'm guessing more of the same.
Yeah, definitely more of the same. And yeah, as you say, loving it too. It has, there's certain parts of the gameplay which I'm worried will become repetitive over time. But there's so much magic in there. The visual design, the combat is just addictive as. Just that whole living that samurai fantasy is in itself. Even if I did put it down halfway through and I couldn't be bothered to carry on playing it, I think for me there's been plenty there for me to enjoy and make the purchase worthwhile. But yeah, it seems like an epic game, doesn't it? I think for me at least 50 hours plus the way it's going. I think we both want to take our time with it, don't we, and just appreciate all aspects rather than rush through the story.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've mainly just been exploring the world, uncovering the map, finding side quests and all that. I've not really done a lot on the story so far, but I guess I'll need to press on with that at some point.
Yeah, I think there's so much to say about it, and we'll save it for a impression/review video in the future, hey Rich, and we can
absolutely
give our full thoughts there. But first of all, let's kick us off. So yeah, we've just mentioned it, the Xbox showcase. We wanted to provide a bit of a summary. Now, first of all, and this is pretty much blown out the water, but there was rumours ahead of time this week from Clobbrill on Reset Era that essentially a grappling hook is going to be included in this new gameplay, which we did actually see. So that came into fruition. Just to talk briefly about the highlights for me of this reveal, I think State of Decay 3 looked very pretty. Halo, I think we're pretty sure it's open world. We'll come back to it. I'll throw it over to you, Rich, because I want to know what you think, actually. But graphically, I was quite underwhelmed. It seemed almost current gen. Then we've got Everwild, though, a rare game, which looked beautiful. And I'd be willing to bet that Rich was very impressed by that when we come to him in a moment. Avowed, for me, looked amazing, like Skyrim sort of vibes, which was being developed by Obsidian. Very chuffed about that. Oh, and I've already missed a trick, Rich, and not changed the icon, so I'll do that now. Psychonauts from Double Fine, Psychonauts 2. I was already excited about this, but then Jack Black looks to be, a big part of it. He's adding to the soundtrack, at least, from what we've seen. This psychedelic kind of level was shown, which is right up my alley, so very excited. Little hint of PSO, which again, I think will excite Rich and we'll throw back. The Medium also looked great, kind of the Silent Hill spiritual successor there. And then lastly, for me, Fable, of course, stuck out. Looks interesting, very brief cinematic trailer. But yeah, for me personally, I don't know, it was pretty strong, maybe an 8 out of 10 as a showcase, as a display of next gen graphics and stuff. But Rich, what did you think? More importantly, I'd love to hear your thoughts, my friend.
So yeah, I think you're right on the money with that. Halo definitely does look open world. To be honest, I watched the conference on my phone, and I thought Halo looked pretty good. But obviously, that was looking at it on my phone, and because I didn't want to use too much data, I pumped the resolution down as well. I have to say though, the cinematic. So there was a shot where we were in a spaceship. That did have a feel of current gen. The world definitely seemed better. But yeah, it's hard to give a real good read on any of the graphics we saw just because of how I was watching it. I did think Medium, I thought that looked very, very interesting. I thought that looked like that is going to be very interesting and definitely one to follow. And as you say, the game from Rare looks incredible, and I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah.
And of course, PSO. Yeah, really. I mean, we were literally talking, I think, this week about getting the PSO 2, which is sort of a release of a game that's been out a long time in Japan. But yeah, that looks like maybe we should be holding fire now until we see this new PSO game.
Well, we have got a busy schedule, haven't we, mate? So maybe that would be a good shout. I mean, just a word back on the Halo thing. No, I get what you're saying. It didn't look awful, and perhaps because it's open world, that sort of explains why sometimes the graphics have to be scaled back. But I think I don't know, it looks really fun, don't get me wrong, the gameplay looks really fun. But then when you compared it later on, they showed like a Destiny 2, which I think had been kind of improved a little bit for next gen. And compared, I almost think that looked better in certain respects. More dynamic, the lighting was a bit more next gen. So yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, like you say, maybe if I rewatch it in 4K, for example, it might actually steal my eyes a bit more. But
and
go on.
Something else I'd like to say was first confirmation of a game being produced for Xbox Series X using the Unreal Engine 5.
Oh, I missed that. Go on then. Which one was that?
Which one was it?
State of Decay 3, maybe, because that looked really nice.
I can't remember which one it was.
Or was it Hellblade?
But yeah,
Hellblade 2, maybe.
I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. It's Hellblade 2. Yeah, they said absolutely it was being developed on the Unreal Engine 5, which I thought was really interesting. And actually, I have to say, that looks amazing from the cinematic trailer we saw.
Yeah, no surprise there, I suppose. And the original, for a relatively small operation, was beautiful in terms of its graphics. So, yeah, no, fingers crossed then. We'll hope to see more of these showcases from both Sony and Microsoft as the year progresses. But yeah, not a bad showing. I think they've recovered from their last outing, Rich, for sure.
Absolutely, and I have to say, it's a good smattering of games. I think personally, from mine and your standpoint, the biggest problem we've got with actual shall we buy an Xbox Series X is almost all of the game franchises that we like the looks of. Halo, all of the ones that pretty much were showcased, apart from a few, all had the Windows logo, which means they're going to come to Windows PC. So it's like, well, what's drawing us to buy an Xbox Series X?
Yeah, this is it. I mean, I suppose they're just bothered about the software sales, it seems, don't they? They're not so bothered about what platform you're using, and that's their whole business model and philosophy this generation. But yeah, it's certainly surprising in some ways. We'll have to see how that works out for them. But no, thumbs up to Microsoft, solid showing. But Rich, do you want to take us on to the next subject, please?
Yeah, so we've just spoken quite highly about quite a successful showcase by Microsoft about upcoming games. Well, Nintendo have gone completely the opposite way.
Nice segue.
So what we're calling a train wreck Direct Mini.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was a short one. I think it was about 8.5 minutes. And it's the first Nintendo Direct stream of any type since March. And this was done in like a direct mini presentation. The last full direct was last September, which is a long. We're getting on towards a year ago now. So what did we see? Well, not a lot is the answer to that. A few updates on Japanese RPG Shin Miyago's Tensei 5.
Shin Megami, I think it is, my friend.
Sorry, yeah, which made an appearance during 2017, and the news generally was great for people who are interested in that kind of game, but there just wasn't really anything of worth in there, was there, Tab?
No, absolutely not. And I mean, it was billed as this Nintendo Direct Mini, a partners showcase specifically. So I suppose you could argue to an extent they set some expectation that it wasn't going to be, this massive fanfare that I think fans are hoping for, given, as you say, the massive gap of time since we had something previously. But I think, I've said this to you, I think when you're essentially saying to people, aren't you, with any sort of direct like that, any sort of event released on YouTube, roll up, to the circus tents. And I think when you're doing that and then you don't deliver something which is, meaningful and at least accessible to most people, so it has something in there for everybody, well, I think you're asking for, a bad response, aren't you, really? You're not reading the room particularly well. And for me, very disappointed.
Absolutely, and I do think it's interesting that Nintendo have branded this as a partner showcase. That suggests that they've got new partners coming on board in the future. Brilliant if that is the case for Switch. But does the Switch have a problem, or Nintendo in general have a problem right now? Their release schedule in 2020 is looking thin on the ground, and especially with obviously the upcoming next generations coming from Microsoft and Sony, I am worried about the Switch's longevity at this point.
I think we have to perhaps say or concede at this point whether they want to recognise it or not. The COVID-19 situation seems to have knocked them for six, and I don't know whether they've been able to pivot their own operation to respond to that and keep up with deadlines, delivering the games, the software behind the scenes as much as they hoped they could. And it seems, you could argue, and I did see a tweet, I forget who said it now, but someone suggested this Nintendo Direct Mini was more like a contractual obligation because they've made some sort of contract with third parties to bring games to the Switch, and they've said, we'll do your Mini, we'll make sure we get your name on a banner, advertise those games to give you a good chance. And it might just have been that, but the problem with that is, you at least need to counterbalance something like that with some actual, a couple of big deal games like Breath of the Wild 2 maybe, or a Metroid update. That would have just, absolutely neutralised any, disappointment in the fan base. So for me, definitely a misstep. And as I say, I think Ninty, they need to get something sorted soon. Otherwise, although they're selling, Switch's hand over fist, you've got to keep that loyalty in your fan base. That's what gets you through those kind of rough parts of of the games industry. Yes, they're on a high at the minute, but on the next low, you need that fan base behind you to help you get through those tough times. So anyway, go on, my friend. I'm sure they've absolutely got stuff in the mix in terms of coming in the future, but right now it seems like there's a big chasm in their release schedule, and you're thinking, this is going to undoubtedly affect Switch sales, and I'm guessing that it's something unexpected. No one expected the global crisis that we've gone through, but as you say, maybe they've not reacted quite as maybe some of the others have. Maybe they've not been able to adapt quite so well, but it's a shame. But I don't think the Switch is in trouble. I just think the next 6 to 8 months of Switch could be a little bit dry. Agreed, my friend. And BArcadians, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective on the matter. But let's move us on. So the next article, speaking of events and showcases, well, apparently there's a rumoured State of Play event for the PlayStation 5, which is set for August the 6th. And we're looking at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. I think that's Eastern time, 10 p.m. I don't know what that stands for, Rich, but it looks like CEST. And then 9 p.m. In UK time, essentially. So, this comes from Roberto Serrano, who I think has some sort of established credibility in the industry for these sorts of rumours. For me, I really hope that is the case. There's been rumours going around for a while now suggesting that Sony have plenty more up their sleeve for next gen, beyond just the likes of Spider-Man, Horizon, and what we saw in the last showcase reveal. So I think it makes sense again, given that we've just seen this Xbox showcase, to have a response to that. And as we know, Sony love to drop that mic whenever they can when it comes to Microsoft. But Rich, what do you make of this? Do you think it could be correct? Would you like to see it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, both me and you are at this point itchy feet about getting our pre-orders in. You know, we keep hearing about this potential, you know, lack of stock on release for the PS5. I've read some reports this week about single consoles per household, which means, you know, if you want to buy one for you, maybe you've got two sons, it's not going to help. You're not going to happen. You can only get one. So yeah, I'm really hoping we get something soon. I mean, this is 2 weeks away, very roughly. Would make sense. But yeah, we need something to move this on so we can get pre-orders in. And for me, I would think they want that as soon as possible so they can plan for how many consoles they're going to sell.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, I think you can, well, as you said, you can, what's the word? Subscribe your interest. Is that the right terminology?
Absolutely.
Which at least perhaps gives them some sort of intel as to how many orders they have. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We need to see that pre-order drop soon, and what better way to do it in a showcase and presentation. But yeah, there was something else I just wanted to mention on that, Rich, but it's completely skipped my mind. Is there any other thoughts from you while I try and recover that thought?
No. I'm hoping that we don't get a white console launch and 3 to 6 months later there's a black one, because that will annoy me.
Yeah, I know. I think both of us, a black one would definitely fit better in our AV setup, so to speak. So fingers crossed we do get to see that. No, the thought's gone. We'll move on. We've got plenty to get through. So, Ubisoft, or Ubisoft as I think it's supposed to be pronounced, there's been quite a bit of dodgy press on this one, hasn't there, Rich? Do you want to tell us all about that?
Yeah, so it came out in allegations, a couple of weeks ago now, I think, that there would been some various different abuse allegations that have been going on within Ubisoft, and that these allegations had not been tackled well enough. And I think a group of employees, is that right, Tabz, wrote a letter sort of saying we need action on this. Is that sort of the...
Yeah, I think from the top of my head, I think there was like 100 signatures in the end from employees appealing to leadership, essentially. The culture was toxic, all sorts of misconduct and allegations, basically at the feet of a lot of the key leaders in the company. So, you know... And we said last week, we mentioned the Ubisoft conference, and we were disappointed that there wasn't anything mentioned about this during the conference, which felt like, I don't know, we sort of said that was a misstep, but I think it comes to light now with the Ubisoft statement and the announce of all these changes, which I'll go on to a moment, why they didn't say anything that day. So this comes from Q1 earnings call, made room for a handful of updates on the situation at Ubisoft following a wave of public allegations, as we've just mentioned. Ken Rumpf, or of Jeffries, I suppose. Yeah, I've never heard of Jeffries, but perhaps some sort of...
Ken Rumpf of Jeffries?
Yeah, I think...
That sounds weird.
I think Jeffries must be a publication of some kind.
Oh, okay, yeah. During a Q&A, this is a quote here. Regarding what happened recently, there are kind of three options. Either as CEO, you didn't know what this was happening, which is not great, or you perhaps didn't know enough and should have asked more. Maybe that's the answer. Or you knew, which of course would not be good. So
this is just, Rich, just to fill the blank in there. This was shot at Yves Guillemot, who's the CEO, I think, of Ubisoft. So go on, you carry us on. What was his response?
So his response to that was, each time we've been made aware of misconduct, we've made tough decisions and made sure that those decisions had a clear and positive impact. It has now become clear that certain individuals betrayed the trust I placed in them and didn't adhere to Ubisoft's shared values. So I have never compromised on my core values and ethics, and I never will.
I mean, before we move on, Rich, to the changes that they have promised, which is good. I mean, what do you make of that, my friend? I feel like if you're a CEO of a company, you should have a better handle on something as bad as this. Multiple allegations against leadership, hundreds of signatures within the company complaining. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yes. Now, obviously, as soon as hundreds of signatures come out complaining about something, then you've got to say that the CEO would know about that. But I think some of the other things that are going on, if they're happening at a middle to lower managerial level where it can be easily covered up, the CEOs of a huge company are so removed from like the day-to-day workings of business, I think, that it's possible that he didn't know about a lot of this stuff until obviously it came to light. Well, actually, the employees have had enough of this now. We need to make everybody aware of this. So I'm not saying that's an excuse for this. I'm just saying it is possible that he had no knowledge of these things that were going on.
See, I would argue, though, that's a fair point, and that could be the practical reality here. But at the end of the day, perhaps he should have his finger on the pulse a bit more in his own company. Perhaps he should make sure he's involved more heavily, with his departments, and visit more, keep in touch, make sure he's placing trust in the right individuals in the first place. And, hierarchies like this, when you've got that separation, things like this can emerge. You've got to, as a CEO, perhaps take ownership and accountability for that. And this statement doesn't really do that. He's kind of dodged it a bit. But anyway.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing his lesson learned will be, I need to have my finger more on the pulse, and because this is an extremely embarrassing thing to happen to what is a big company in the games industry. And obviously it's not just embarrassing. It's embarrassing in terms of that it's got this far and it's not been dealt with, and the things that are happening have not been properly dealt with, and people disciplined accordingly and dismissed if that's what's necessary.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, disappointing. But do you want to tell us about some of the changes they've got planned, Rich? Because then,
so yeah, they've released this massive statement of basically how they will change and become better, and a part and parcel of those changes were editorial team restructuring and third-party examinations of culture and policies, mandatory training on harassment matters. There'll be a new code of conduct, a new performance criterion to create a positive and inclusive environment, which is fantastic. You have to say, why weren't a lot of those things already in place? Why did it take this sort of big blow up to sort of push it to have all those things instilled?
But it sounds robust, doesn't it? So as a response,
absolutely,
you perhaps can't really fault them. And then just to finish off, I mean, I don't know if you saw this, Rich, but there was also a report in Bloomberg this week which essentially suggested that this toxic culture even actually had an effect on their development of video games. So they would shy away from female leads, female protagonists in their games, and tend to favour towards male protagonists, on the assumption that it wouldn't sell as well, that it would somehow affect them, monetarily. I mean, if that's true, I do think that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, you could maybe argue years ago that games were represented, well, gamers, essentially, a large part of the gamer population was made up of men. But that's certainly changed a lot in recent years, I think. And I think it's gaming in itself is becoming so popular, the audience is expanding, month to month, isn't it, really? So I think that's an anachronistic outlook to have.
I mean, that just sounds like not. I mean, we play games all the time with female leads. Tomb Raider, Horizon,
Last of Us.
And some of the yeah, exactly, Last of Us, exactly, two big female protagonists. So yeah, I don't know. I don't get that. I mean, if that's a culture they've instilled within them, then that's their own failings. But I don't subscribe to that at all.
Yeah, there was a chap on this particular conference, I suppose you would say, or earnings call as it was. Frederick Duguay, I'm going to say, I've probably mispronounced that, but he tried to defend that and then point to a load of diverse representation in their games, which to an extent you can agree with, but this has come, I think, from former and current employees, so there's no smoke without fire, is there, in that respect? But anyway, Rich, shall we move on to the final piece today?
Go for it, mate.
So, bang on trend for us, our favourite game at the moment, Ghosts of Tsushima. And I'm finally saying that correctly. I've been saying Tsushima all this time, and I think, Rich, from what the game tells us, it's Tsushima. So anyway, Ghosts of Tsushima apparently was once, in the form of a game called Prophecy. So we saw an 11-minute gameplay demo for this cancelled Sucker Punch project known as Prophecy, which data miners have suggested was created in 2015, which puts it around the same time as the conception, we think, of Ghost of Tsushima. So yeah, I mean, it still looks fabulous and really polished, especially for a demo. It's it looks like a fully fledged, I would say, beautiful game. So yeah, it's kind of got this urban steampunk setting, and it seems to be centered around the exploits of a thief named Tavora. We got that from Games Radar. But yeah, I've watched the video myself, Rich. I think you've had a chance to check it out, and
Indeed,
it looks amazing. I mean, I'd be really chuffed to pieces if they just had that kind of repackaged for next gen, give it a next gen coat of paint, and launch it out there. I suppose the only thing I will say is, I've not moved this logo on again, my friend. I'm failing this badly here. There we go. The only thing I will say is, I suppose it does look more similar to the likes of Assassin's Creed than Ghost does. So perhaps they were thinking, well, we don't want to come across as copycats. We want to have our own unique identity. What were your thoughts?
Well, look, so firstly, I absolutely agree with you. It does look good. I think it looks too good, though. Like, this is supposed to be, we were doing this. I'm not sure how this video came about, whether it was hacked or how this video came about, but it seems it's too well polished. Like, I almost think, is this like they're testing the water, and then they're going to announce in a few months, oh yeah, by the way, that little demo we put out, that's actually a game. It's going to come out on next gen next year. I don't know. It looks so good. I think,
unless it was like one of these cinematic trailers that simulated to look like gameplay, and therefore that's how they made it so polished. Because otherwise, it looks like there's so many systems, such a mature engine behind it, for it to be scrapped, just as it apparently was. It's quite baffling to me. So yeah.
Well, if you think about the amount of work it would have taken to develop that demo, it would have been an incredible amount of time. So to just then scrap it, unless, as you say, they took a lot of the assets, from that and tweaked them and then changed it into Tsushima, that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, it looks incredible, and I'm loving playing, obviously, Ghost at the moment. So if this becomes a second game from them, moving into the future, maybe on the PS5, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, me too, my friend. Me too. I think it looked distinct enough. The likes of it. Go on.
But you absolutely are right. It does have a very Assassin's Creed feel to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, just the whole kind of cityscape, thief, doing the rounds. Almost seemed like there was this oppressive regime, and he was perhaps some sort of revolutionary. So it all did stink a little bit of Assassin's Creed, but I'd welcome it. But anyway, I think that probably wraps us up everything today, Rich. I have obviously performed terribly at trying to MC the BA News show, so apologies, BArcadians. I'm sorry, Rich. We'll have Rich hopefully back at the helm next week after his holiday has been and gone. But Rich, any final thoughts from yourself?
If you haven't bought it, go and buy Ghost of Tsushima.
Tsushima. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And BArcadians, as ever, let us know what you thought about this new show, about how badly I've MC'd it, more importantly, about the topics that we talked about today. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your perspectives. Let's get talking. Please like the video to support what we do on the channel. Please make sure you subscribe if you aren't already, and ring that bell for notifications. And I think that's about it, Rich. Another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed. I'm so fucking hot.